If you have ever visited this place, it's hard to imagine its dark secret. Beneath these peaceful landscapes lies a story of unimaginable suffering, resilience, and a shifting of a whole world order. This is a tale of the Thai-Burma Railway. Japan's imperial ambition was rooted in desire for economic self-sufficiency and regional dominance, which led to a pursuit of natural resources to run their new empire. The concept of a greater East Asia co-prosperity sphere was promoted. Japan claimed that they would liberate the countries from the Western colonial powers in mutual prosperity. However, this rhetoric was masked by the sheer brutal reality of Japanese military expansion and the harsh occupation that followed. The invasions was to secure vital resources such as oil and rubber, which were crucial for Japan's war effort. Additionally, the weakening of European and American powers during the war presented Japan with the opportunity to quickly expand its territory and influence across Southeast Asia. The attack on Pearl Harbor by Japan on December 7, 1941 was a strategic military decision rather than a random act that people often try and portray it as. Japan's expansionist policies in Asia, particularly its aggression to move into China and Southeast Asia, had already heightened tensions with the United States. The US, in response to Japan's occupation of French Indochina, had imposed economic sanctions, including an oil embargo, which severely threatened Japan's energy supply. With over 90% of its oil imports cut off, Japan was in a dire situation. The decision to attack Pearl Harbor was aimed at crippling the US Pacific Fleet, thereby preventing it from interfering with Japan's plan to seize the oil-rich territories in Southeast Asia, including the Philippines, which was a colonial possession of the USA. Sweeping through British Hong Kong, Malaysia, Singapore and Burma, French, Vietnam, Cambodia and Laos, the Dutch Indonesia, and as I already said, the American Philippines, Japan found themselves with 130,000 prisoners of war. And that's a lot of prisoners of war, plus many more prisoners from captured territories. Some people welcomed the Asian colonial power over the Western one, but their opinions soon changed. Japan at that time lived a very different life from the rest of the world, one of extreme brutality. The dominance of British Empire began to fall. Many historians see these losses as the beginning of the empire's decline, a realization that the reach of the British power was no longer untouchable.
Lomax, my friend. I think we have just witnessed the fall of the British Empire.
Meanwhile, Japanese forces relied on these prisoners of war as labourers. They also essentially tricked many Asian civilians into thinking that they were going to get well-paid work, but they found themselves enslaved. The Thai-Burmese Railway, often referred to as Death Railway, was constructed during World War II by the Japanese Empire. The railway was built to provide a land supply route for Japanese forces in Burma and avoid the sea routes that had too many Allied navy there for the Japanese to enter. The construction of the railway will be 415 kilometers long and involved forced labour of Southeast Asian civilians and Allied prisoners of war under harsh and brutal conditions. The project was to aim Thailand with Burma and ultimately extend the reach of the Japanese Empire with their eyes set on India. The railway construction sites like the Hellfire Pass were scenes of intense suffering. Here workers carved into the rocks with firelights, giving the pass its chilling name. Myanmar borders is there. Myanmar now. And if we follow this along, we get to what's called the Hellfire Pass, which is a really bad part of the railway because in order to build it, they had to chop away the rocks to make the train tracks go through, which is a very hard job to do, and they'd work day and night, and many people died basically in that
Many people, thousands, I think.
And a lot of Australians died on that spot too. So the Australians have built this museum with information. Every day they would have been expected to cut this much rock out using hand tools and only fed this much. A lot of this railway was lost after the Second World War. It was only in the 1980s that some prisoners of war came back to relocate a lot of the railway that went missing. Some of it was hard to find, like this bit over here, but they found it in the end. See, it's actually a really beautiful place to come. This is where the railway would have sat once. Some of it. I'm going to follow it along to the Hellfire Pass. Yeah, it's a tragic history. The walk itself is actually really beautiful. Obviously today I'm not getting the same horrible conditions that they would have had to work in. I'm just lucky really to be here when, you know, just being able to walk. To me it's like a nice walk, but for them it would have been horrible, you know.
Taking down animals on the leaves.
Let me just read you. Today's a bad day for videos really because the lighting's not good at all. This is the Hellfire Pass coming up. It says, the name Hellfire Pass came from the appalling working conditions at and around this site. In mid-1943, when the Japanese introduced the Speedo period to meet tight deadlines for completing the railway, prisoners were forced to work long hours into the night. The work site was lit by oil lamps and bamboo fires. This flickering light, the noise from the drilling of the rock, and the shuffling of hundreds of poorly fed prisoners seemed like the very image of hell. Here it is. Died later.
Sister and brother.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, you read that.
Okay. Oh, brother and sister, yeah, sorry, couldn't see that bit. Together again.
It's the spikes that they used.
It's very eerie here.
Setting up the rock.
Very eerie. Can understand working day and night, knocking this out by hand tools. Near no food, lots of disease. It's not a nice way to go. Some of the track still remains. Yeah, you definitely get a bad feeling there. Conscripted nationals Burma, Malaya and Thailand were included in building this. And American, Australian, British and Dutch prisoners of war.
There's Hugh's foot's injured. It's for you, bud. I will get some footage. As you can see, look at these rocks, so sharp. These are my flippity flops. I'm not handling it that well. See, look at the jungle. As you can see, the rocks, fucking massive. We're walking on the smallest bit there, which is obviously where lots of people have walked.
To help us to build a railway. If you help, you will have a good war. But we said no.
This is the incredible story of Lomax. While in camp, Lomax secretly built a crude radio, hoping to listen to news about the war and maintain some connection with the outside world. However, the Japanese guards discovered their radio and accused Lomax of espionage. He was brutally tortured and endured beatings, starvation and waterboarding. There was an interpreter called Takashi Nagasi, who was involved in the torture. After the war, Lomax returned to Britain, but he struggled with trauma of his experiences. Like many prisoners of war, he suffered from severe PTSD. Lomax held on to anger and bitterness, haunted by nightmares and memories of his torture. Decades later, Lomax learnt that Takashi Nagasi, the interpreter who had been involved in his torture, was still alive and had written about his remorse for actions during the war. Nagasi had become a Buddhist priest and devoted his life to atoning for his wartime actions. With encouragement from his wife, Lomax decided to confront Nagasi, hoping to find closure and understanding. In 1993, Lomax travelled to Thailand to meet Nagasi in person. The meeting was emotional and complex, but ultimately Lomax chose to forgive him. This gave Lomax a sense of peace he has sought for decades.
No, I mean, when you are tortured, being tortured, I measured your pulse.
Yes.
And
yes.
Your heartbeat is very smooth.
Yes.
So I am very much relaxed.
You see, these are where the broken bones are.
Yes, I remember.
Yes.
Very sorry. Very sorry for you.
Well, we both survived.
As a member of the Japanese army, we treated your countrymen very, very badly and against the humanity.
Yes.
I realized that.
Yes.
So when I repatriated from here to country, and I got various sufferings in my heart and mind. But I tried. And whenever I think of you, why you are born in this world? What purpose?
Yes.
For what purpose
It's
you are born?
a difficult question to answer. Yes.
I'm very, very sorry.
Well, thank you very much.
I think I can die safely.
Interesting enough, these two became quite good friends. After decades of mental torture, I guess he just wanted closure. And it is clear that Nagasi did have a big sense of remorse and regret. What would you do in that situation? What would I do? I don't know. This whole concept of connecting Thailand to Burma wasn't originally a Japanese idea. It was considered by the British sometime before in the 19th century, long before the infamous construction. Initially proposed in the 1880s, the British colonial authorities in Burma had thought about a route between Thailand and Burma. However, due to the challenging terrain, the idea was shelved because the amount of life that would be lost became evident. The bridge over the River Kwai, made famous in the film in 1957, was another treacherous site where lives were lost daily in brutal conditions, starvation and disease. Meanwhile, the 14th Army, which included British, Indian, Gurkha and African soldiers, played a crucial role in repelling Japanese forces. The railway itself received Allied bombings and the railway failed. More than 90,000 civilians died building it, as did around 12,000 Allied soldiers. What remained of the people working on the railway were freed. The people recovered physically, but mentally not so easily. Thai-Burma Railway was born from war and ambition. Walking these tracks today, we carry forward the memories of those who suffered here. On this day, we remember the horrors of war and why it should be avoided whenever possible.
Neither shall they learn war anymore, but they shall all sit under their own vines and under their own fig trees, and no one shall make them afraid. For the mouth of the Lord of hosts has spoken. For all peoples walk, each in the name of its God, but we will walk in the name of the Lord our God, forever and ever.
Given to us by men and women who have endured war. is pray for all people who suffer, especially those who, having survived conflict, still bear its marks in mind or body.